To the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders. I'm pleased to have on the head baseball coach, returning guest on the CT Sports Talent podcast. Coach Smolley is with me. Coach, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Chris, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
It's funny because I see you during the football season. I see you for basketball. We'll kind of talk a little shop about baseball. It's finally here again. You guys had your season kind of cut short as far as the postseason, losing to a fellow NVL team in the 15th seed Oxford Wolverines in the Class S, baseball playoffs in the state tournament. But you returned back a lot of talent. And before we get into like just what's kind of coming into this year, you know, what's the off season? What was it like during the summer if you were able to have some workouts with the kids as far as just conversations with them leading up to the season?
Yeah, so I didn't do too many workouts with them. It's kind of tough with baseball because all those kids get into summer baseball.
Yeah.
They were able to help me with the youth camp that I do at school, so they were with me there, and they were able to take some swings and take some fly balls and ground balls. Our work kind of really started when school started, and the kids that weren't playing a fall sport were lifting and doing a little conditioning, and then when we got into winter, we start with our winter workouts. All the kids go over to Smash Factory, and they go there once a week and do some private workouts there. But I
Mhm.
think they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder after last year, and we bring back a strong senior class who really has been playing for the last 2 or 3 years. So I think those kids are really they're ready to win, and I think they have that built into them this year.
One thing too about your senior class, a couple guys to kind of point out with Perone and Unwin, they play multiple sports, and I'm sure there's other guys too that I don't even know about that play multiple sports. That has to be as a coach, knowing that your guys, even though they're not playing baseball year round, is a good thing because they're kind of getting away from the bat and the glove, and they're able to utilize their athleticism playing again multiple sports.
Yeah, I encourage all my kids to play multiple sports. I'm not a fan of the play baseball for 12 months a year, or play basketball, or whatever it may be. I'm encouraging my kids, get out there and play football. If you're not playing football, run cross country, play basketball or run indoor track in the winter. Just do something to get away from the game a little bit and give your body a
Mhm.
chance to rest and use some other muscles that you may not be used to using during baseball. But yeah, I mean Gavin Perone is one of those three sport athletes. Adrian Acosta, who played basketball, he came back this year and is going to play for us.
Nice.
And then we got a ton of football kids. Drew Couette, Carson Donovan. A bunch of guys who are just multi-sport athletes. Garrett Moad, CJ Hernandez.
Mhm.
These kids are playing all the sports at Holy Cross and having success in other seasons, which I think, gives them the ability to have success on the baseball field as well.
That's got to be pretty cool knowing that you have a lot of that football and basketball talent that had such success as far as I know football just missed the playoffs. But in terms of that class, they had a lot of playoff appearances. They've had it for baseball, basketball, same thing as well. So there's so much experience with the state tournament, with those close games and the NVL, tournament games and such. That's got to be something that has to mean something with this team with such, a tight-knit senior class.
Yeah, this class is definitely a special one. When you look back at their 4 years, I mean, they've had athletic accomplishments since their freshman year.
Mhm.
I mean, Drew and Karsten Donovan, they started shortstop and second base their freshman year of the NVL championship game when we won. So, I mean, they've been at it for a long time. Aiden Bazalian, pitched as a freshman.
Yep.
And then all these guys played multiple sports and had success, whether it was football, baseball, basketball, and they've been in the thick of it. And I think that playing in those playoff games in other seasons kind of gives them the ability to have success, throughout their athletic career. So it definitely benefits me as the baseball coach,
Mhm.
and I look forward to coaching them in their senior year as they kind of finish up their career at Holy Cross.
Is there anything that you've learned, man, from your first year, now this being your sixth year and such? Is there anything that you've learned from that first year and then maybe you would have done differently now, as I said, entering now year six?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest things is you start the season and it comes upon so quick. Like you get pitchers and catchers and you start your conditioning and then all of a sudden you're playing. And I think my first couple years I was trying to find that perfect lineup really early.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna. You need the first half of the season to try some different lineups, move some kids around. I mean, you're gonna have, five or six pitchers that are gonna be in the game that you're gonna have different lineups with. So I think one of the biggest things that I've taken away from, the last 5 years is you got to play your best baseball and have your lineup set the last half of the year
Mhm.
and kind of try to find your way the first half of the year. And I think that's really worked for us.
To steal a quote that I was talking with Boehner yesterday a little bit about their game that a very good game against Naugatuck. Woodland, if people don't know, was winning through 6 innings. Seventh inning, they kind of lost it there, and Naugatuck was able to get a big win against a Woodland team that won the state tournament last year against Joe Barlow. But
Yeah.
he mentioned to me how being able to plant your crops and being able to watch them grow, and he's got such a young team, he's going to watch them. I don't want to say fail, but baseball, you fail more than you do succeed, right?
Yeah.
Being able to see them grow. Do you feel like this team, because they're so senior laden, not to say they're not going to fail, but maybe like basically what I'm saying is your crops have now grown. You have so many guys who are maybe not young in the tooth like a Woodland team. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we bring back 8 starters and our three top pitchers. So these kids have played, not only last year, but there was probably 4 or 5 of them that started as sophomores too. So, they've played, 40 to 50 games of high school baseball. Not to say that we're not going to have our growing pains at the beginning of the season, because I know we will. It's a quick start to the season. Haven't had many days where we could actually be on a baseball field with the weather that we've had. So, we're looking forward to playing some games and getting outside and, improving every day. And, like I said, by the time, the end of May rolls around, hopefully we have those couple lineups that we're confident with and, our kids are confident with, and, we're playing baseball the way that we know we can coming into tournament time.
Has there been any sort of adjustment or anything that you've been able to do? Because, unless something changes with how they do it, baseball will always be like this for the foreseeable future. Have you been able to figure out ways to kind of not speed up the learning curve or speed up things as far as making sure guys are healthy, arms are good, guys are getting their at bats, the defense, and all that? Is there any way to be able to prepare them quicker, or is it just impossible?
I mean, we really don't get much time with them,
Mm.
from the middle of March to when we start the first week of April. I mean, the way that things work out now, these kids are, doing so much on their own in the winter that, especially from a pitching standpoint, these
Mhm.
kids come to pitchers and catchers already with a strong base ready to go and, already probably throwing 25 to 40 pitches. So it's good to have that. I think the biggest thing is these kids just need field time. Seeing balls off the bat, which they don't get over the winter. Seeing live at bats, which they probably don't get over the winter. Those are the little things that, just come with time. Situational baseball. You can only go over so much in 2 weeks, and whether you're in a gym or, whether you get to be on a baseball field, sometimes you need those experiences, and sometimes they're failures, but a lot of times those things come early in the season and make you a better team come late May.
I think about the last couple of years how the NVL, and this goes for all sports, where I feel like the NVL kind of gets forgotten, slept on, whatever word you want to, use. And maybe
Yeah.
because the FCX has a lot of the big time programs, so they're playing in L and double L, or you got the sexy programs that people couldn't, go right off the bat and they're like, okay, this team because of the game time top 10 and all that. But when I think about NVL baseball, it's very, I mean, look, 2 years ago, Woolkit, albeit they had a big lead and they lost it to Nonawag, they were in a
Yeah.
championship game. How many people would have put Woolkit there, right? Obviously, the Oxford Holy Cross game was in a lot of ways, winner of that game, potentially fighting their way to a championship. Obviously, Oxford got to that and they lost to Coventry last year in Class S.
Yeah.
What makes the NVL so deep, but people just don't pay attention to it?
I mean, when you look at our league is full of Class S and Class M schools. You know what I mean? We're a small league. We have a couple bigger schools filtered in, but I mean, historically speaking, you look at the Class S, Class M tournament over the last 10 years, there's an MVL team in the Final Four almost every single year.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're representing our league well, with the small schools, and then, when it comes down to it, you can't compete with some of those bigger FCAC and SEC schools. I mean, they're powerhouses, and we don't have the ability to compete with them. Naugatuck does really well. Joe does a great job over there, so
Yep.
he's had some success in the playoffs. But again, it's tough to compete with those big L and double L schools, and I think the MVL is just littered with Class S and Class M schools. But I think we hold our own in those divisions and do really well in those tournaments.
You know what, too? I don't think that that's a bad thing because it's the same thing for football, too. When you think about the divisions and such, or the
Yep.
classes rather, not divisions, still in
Sure.
basketball mode. But you think about the classes and such, a lot of it's S, double S, obviously Naugatuck being an L,
Yep.
Kennedy being as high as they were, made the playoffs for the first time ever for football. I don't think it's really a negative thing because the NVL is what it is. It's
Yeah.
blue collar, old school fourth, fifth, sixth, eight, 10 generations of people who've lived in various towns forever.
Right.
But the S and the M, like, there's nothing wrong with that. At least I don't think so.
No, listen, that's who we are, and we take pride in that. And being a small school, we get our opportunities to play in the CIAC tournament. We're gonna, do our best to make a run. And if it ever works out, and we have a great tournament and we can win a state championship, I mean, we're gonna be proud of it. And that's gonna be something that Holy Cross will be able to cherish forever.
Now, before I let you go, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on. Has there been any past Holy Cross players that you've been able to have conversations with, either who are playing in college right now or maybe done playing baseball, but now they've moved on to their career beyond the diamond? Anyone in particular?
Actually, that you mentioned that, I got an email last week from one of my former players. I never actually got a chance to coach him because it was my first season.
Hmm.
He was going to be a senior. That was COVID when we
Yeah.
didn't have a season, but he ended up going to play at Elms College, Justin Miller. So he had a 4-year career there and stayed in touch a little bit. I saw him every once in a while. Obviously, he was playing baseball, so kind of tough to come around in the spring. But I received an email from him 2 weeks ago asking if we had any players that would potentially be interested in Elms College because now he's coaching baseball there. So, it was good to see him doing well there. I wish I would have had a chance to coach him. He was a great kid.
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, we missed that season, but I'm glad he ended up going on and having a great career at Elms and is sticking into the baseball world and starting to coach. And, that's great for him. And, we're proud of him.
Small world, man, when you think about it, in a lot of ways, where guys who end up, and it happens a lot, where guys who end up after they're done playing, if they can and have the ability to, they try to keep coaching, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, same with you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I got right into it really early, and luckily I have the opportunity to have Logan Bissett, who was, one of my first captains.
Yeah.
He was a, two-time all MVL, all state kid for me, and
Mhm.
won 2 MVL championships with us. And when his time was done at St. A's, he came back and he was really itching to start coaching. So I've been lucky to have him on my staff for the last 2 years, and he's been a tremendous addition. He's been working with our pitchers this year, and he really brings that
Uh,
that youth that the kids really are attracted to, where they could, they feel comfortable talking to him and learning from him, and they respect him a lot. So, he's been great for us to have.
When you see him again, tell him that I was saying like hello to his brother. I played with him with Tim back in
Okay.
the day when we were part of Waterbury Legion Ball. Tim
Yeah.
was fantastic. You talk about a kid. I mean, he threw hard. At least I thought it was hard, but he
Yeah.
was such a uh, pinpoint control, could change speeds really well. And first, he played first base too, and he had a pretty nice swing back in the day as
Yeah.
well. You know.
I will definitely tell him that.
I appreciate that. And really
Sure.
quick, since you mentioned that too, having a guy like that on the staff who had so much success with Holy Cross, that
Yeah.
must take a little bit of pressure off you too now, because now you could focus more on the game, right?
Yeah, I mean when he's with me, I mean he gives a lot of insight in terms of pitching. He has that experience. He's been in the game and
Mhm.
pitched in college and kind of has that insight and that connection, with the pitchers where he can maybe see it from a different perspective than I might be looking at it.
Mhm.
So it's good to be able to work with him, and our kids really respect him, which is good. Yeah, him being such a young coach, he really he's earned the respect of all those kids, and they look up to him, and
Mhm.
they listen to him, and they want to learn from him. So he's been a great addition to our program.
Is there ever a chance that he could potentially maybe one day, like, has he ever expressed about being a head coach, or is he just happy where he's at right now?
I think his goal is to get into coaching and stay with baseball. So I could definitely see him being a head coach and maybe taking over for me, maybe sooner than later, but we'll see. He's still young. He still has to finish college. He still has some things that he needs to accomplish. But I could definitely see him taking that taking that route and being a head coach one day. And he would be a great one because he's a student of the game,
Mm.
and he was as a high school kid. So when you have that mentality as a player, you're kind of bred to be a coach.
Coach, you can't be leaving. Yeah, I mean, you're still young in the tooth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Be going, yeah.
No, I got some time.
I was going to say, now,
I got some unfinished business. So
I was just about to say this before I let you go really quick, as far as with what you have this season. I mean, you mentioned to me before, the kids have not forgotten. You have everybody back for the most part. So, is there any sort of word or saying or anything like that that the kids are thinking about going into this year? Anything?
Uh, I mean, not really. I just tell them just play every game and practice every day with the championship mentality.
Mm,
Obviously our season, we lost in the MDL championship 3-2 to a great Oxford team. They beat us a week later in the second round 3-2. So it's like our season kind of,
yeah.
didn't end the way we wanted it to. In 7 days we got beat by the same team twice to the same score. And you don't really forget that. That bad taste sits in your mouth for a long time. And I'm sure it did with most of our players. So I think they're excited to get started.
Mm.
Um, if they don't have that drive and desire to win and be champions, then I don't know what will give them that. But I think they do. They've been practicing with that mentality since we've started. I'm looking forward to playing a game. And it's a long season. Baseball's a tough sport, and a lot of things have to go your way. But we're looking forward to getting started and playing in a good league again this year.
Was that 3-2 score giving you nightmares for the next week to 2 weeks after?
Yeah, maybe a little bit longer.
Coach, I appreciate you. Best of luck this year. Maybe I'll see you guys down the road at some point.
Thanks, Chris. Always good talking to you.
Always. I wrap things up in the CT Sports Town Show. Next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. Enjoy, find them all. Enjoy the rest of everybody, and be well.